Welcome to the online class from Dhaka Secondary School, North Karachi campus. Assalamu alaikum students of class 8 in the online class of Social Studies. We are studying chapter number 3, Major Climatic Regions of the World, and I am your teacher, Miss Uzma. Topics of the day are temperate grasslands and seasons. Grasslands are perhaps agriculturally the most important areas of the world, as these are main grain growing regions. Temperate grasslands have hot summers and cold winters. Rainfall is moderate. The amount of rainfall influences the height of grassland vegetation, with taller grasses in wetter regions. As in the savanna, seasonal drought and occasional fires are very important to biodiversity. Temperate grasslands have a growing and a dormant seasons. Temperate grassland located in the central North America prairies have tall grasses. Europe and Asia steppes short grasses, and South America pampas. You can say that grasslands are found both in the northern and southern hemisphere between the deserts and the forest belts. Antarctica is the only continent that doesn't have a temperate grassland. Here you have a graph that helps you to understand the climate of grassland, mean average amount of precipitation and temperature in the whole year, mean January to December. Summertime temperatures range around 100 degree Fahrenheit. Wintertime temperature can range around a low of 40 degree Fahrenheit. Late spring and early summer precipitation usually occurs. The climate for these grasslands is basically dry. It is rare to rain more than 100 centimeters a year. That brings seasonal droughts. Animals' life. The animals that live in the temperate grassland are American bison, black-tailed prairie dog, greater rhea. Some information about the American bison: that these animals live in the Great Plains of North America. Males can weigh up to 2,000. Females can weigh up to 1,100 pounds. The average lifespan is 12 to 20 years. Ferret. The black-footed ferret lives in the Great Plains of North America. They can weigh up to 2 pounds. They can also reach up to 2 feet long. Black-footed ferret is on the federal endangered species. Lion. The African lion lives in the grassland of southern Africa. 1 or 2 males will dominate each pride. Lionesses weigh up to 400 pounds and grow to 6 feet long. Lions weigh up to 550 pounds and grow up to 8 feet long. Animals from grassland and steppes. Now you have in front of you animals of the South American pampas. Plant life. The plants that live in the American prairie are basswood. Basswood is a nickname of the bee tree because the bee always being near it for its flowers. They can reach up to 130 feet high. When full mature, basswood trees have heart-shaped leaves. Along with this, porcupine grasses, black walnut, purple lovegrass, switchgrass, turkey grass, and western sanctuary. When compared to other shrubs, the western sanctuary is relatively small and short-lived. When the western sanctuary is fully matured, they grow at 7 to 10 feet tall and the width would be 6 to 8 feet. The leaves go to red, dark red, purple through the seasons. Landscape and habitat. Grassland is the most dry grass and with few trees. Grassland lands are in both hot and cold areas. Fire is important abiotic in many types. Human influences on the temperate grassland, they are positive and negative as well. Here we discuss only 2 points of both. First, the positive one. Number 1, the hunting of animals have been banned due to extinction. Number 2, national parks have been created to preserve the grassland biome. Now the negative ones. Number 1, hundreds of animals are hunted for valuable body parts. Number 2, fires which are started by humans. Here are some warnings for the grassland too. Number 1, continued global warming could turn current marginal grassland into deserts as rainfall patterns change. Number 2, development of urban areas is increasingly cutting into a grassland habitat. Number 3, drought hardy could resistant and herbicides tolerant varieties of soybeans, wheat and corn allow crops to expand into native grassland. Number 4, where only one crop is grown, pests and disease can spread easily, creating the need for potentially toxic pesticides. Now let's start the seasons. A season is a period of the year that is distinguished by special climate conditions. The 4 seasons, spring, summer, fall and winter, follow one another regularly. Each has its own light, temperature and weather patterns that repeat yearly. In the northern hemisphere, winter generally begins on December 21 or 22. Lands around the equator experiences very little differences between the seasons. Belém in Brazil, almost exactly on the equator, has a January temperature of 22.7 degrees centigrade and July 1 of 23.8 degrees centigrade. The further north or south one goes, the greater the differences become between summer and winter. In northern Siberia, for example, inside the Arctic Circle, there are 22 hours of daylight in summer and less than 2 hours in winter. In the same area, the summer temperatures may be 10 degrees centigrade but minus 38 degrees centigrade in winter. Earth seasons because its axis is tilt. Earth rotates on its axis as it orbits the sun, but the axis always point in the same directions. Now we will show it from this figure. Spring equinox 21st March, fall south of the equator, spring north of the equator. The sun shines equally on the southern and northern hemisphere. Summer solstice 21st June, winter south of the equator, summer north of the equator. The sun shines directly on the northern hemisphere and indirectly on the southern hemisphere. Autumn equinox 22 September, spring south of the equator, fall north of the equator. The sun shines equally on the southern and northern hemisphere. Winter solstice 21st December, summer south of the equator, winter north of the equator. The sun shines directly on the southern hemisphere and indirectly on the northern hemisphere. The tilt of the Earth axis is so important to climate that half degree shift in the angle thousands of years ago resulted in forming and melting of ice caps, the desertification in some parts of the world. Explain the terms equinox and solstice. You have read these words. Now we will understand these words. The equinox occurs twice in a year on the following days, 20 or 21st March and 22nd or 23rd September, when the earth is at its furthest from the sun in its orbits. Equinox literally means equal night in Latin, and the day night are almost equal in duration on these days. In the northern hemisphere, the March equinox makes the beginning of spring, and the September equinox marks the beginning of autumn. The seasons are reversed in the southern hemisphere. The definition of solstice is the time when the sun reaches its highest or lowest point at noon, resulting in the shortest and longest days of the year. The longest day of the year is an example of a summer solstice. Now the difference. The biggest difference between the equinox and solstice is the solstice is the point during the Earth's orbit around the Sun at which the Sun is at its greatest distance from the equator, while during an equinox it's at the closest distance from the equator. Work of the day is, just understand this work carefully, and to solve this work get help from the previous lectures as well. Do the complete exercise in your geography notebook. Thank you so much.